we really have much to celebrate. I understand that the first JNF breakfast in this town had 40 people at 7:30 in the morning. Having 1,400 people at 7:30 in the morning in Los Angeles is a modern day miracle. So thank you to the JNF for the miracles that you bring us. Thank you to Sharon Friedman, thank you to Robert Weiss, and again thank you to Lou, and Lou's daughter for the miracle of doing all this for us at a moment's notice. A miracle that 1,400 people know Hatikva by heart in this room without a cantor. It's also a miracle. So I think we have much blessings to count and to appreciate. This morning, if you
Barak are very beautiful, and I want you to know how much I value JNF. I'll give you just two examples. One is important that you know I'm actually missing the first hour of my national radio show today in order to be here with you. I just want you to know how much. Actually, there are three things now that I realize it. The second is I never, ever wake up this early. That's a huge issue for me. And the third is, I want you to know, you may not know how big you are. I guess I do in certain ways as sort of an outsider, because just in the last 2 months, I spoke at the national convention, if you will, of the JNF in Ottawa, the Canadian National Convention. Huge turnout, a very impressive evening. And just last week, I spoke for JNF in Bethesda, Maryland. So I realize what you're doing. You're getting people of all backgrounds in Jewish life. It's a big deal. So congratulations, because we need you to. His son, Sayed Farouk, he was obsessed with Israel. My column this week was, that's all you needed to know. If somebody is obsessed with Israel, you don't need to know anything else about that person. You know their entire value system. If they're obsessed, and we're talking about obviously a negative obsession. If people or a country or an individual is obsessed with hating Israel, you know their entire moral structure. You know that they are dangerous to humanity, not just to the Jews. I repeat this, I have for 40 years. I speak mostly to non-Jews, and I totally forthrightly tell them, you have a very lucky thing in the Jewish minor canary. The Jews are the miner's canary of the world. Miners take canaries down to the mines. The canaries die well before the miner knows that there are any noxious fumes. So the miner sees that the canary has died and knows that he has to fight the fumes or he will die. The non-Jew is the miner, the canary is the Jew. We die first, evil looks at us first, but they never stop with us. But there are so many stupid miners who think that when the canary dies, one of two things. A, it's either the canary's problem, something specific to the canary, or if they are in certain political places, it's the canary's fault. Right. That's what we have entered. Wow. We play this role. And you know why we play this role? So let me tell you, many of you are not particularly religious, I suspect, but let me tell you something I have been saying my whole life. Jewish history proves, or if you don't like the word proves, argues persuasively for the concept of the Jews being the chosen people. I do not understand any other explanation of Jewish history, of Jewish isolation, and of Jew hatred than the fact that we carry a divine burden in history. I know that this is not usually said outside of Orthodox circles, but if it makes you feel any better, I am not Orthodox. I am rational. Not that the Orthodox are not rational. But my approach is purely rational. It is not faith-based. It is reason-based. There is no other explanation for the isolation of the Jew in history. It doesn't make sense, and I will give you a very wonderful little proof of my point. Did you know that China in Chinese means Middle Kingdom, Central Kingdom? In other words, China in Chinese is the center of the world. Non-Chinese are not special like Chinese. Do any of you hate the Chinese for thinking they're the center of the earth? No. It means nothing to you. You will still visit China, eat Chinese food, have Chinese friends, and if the Chinese think that China's the center of the earth, have a nice day. That is your view, and you'd be correct. How about Japan? Do you know why there is a red circle on the Japanese flag? That's the sun. Because the Japanese believe that they are the land of the rising sun. They get the sun before any other country does. How many of you hate Japanese? Will start boycotting sushi places because the Japanese believe that they get the sun first. None of you. If the Japanese were to say to you, just want you to know, we get the sun first, you would say, boy, are you lucky? That's great, great to hear. So now let me ask you a question. Seriously, why would Jews be hated for the belief in chosenness? Jews are hated. They have been always hated. Anti-Semites always talk about the Jews think they're chosen. Why don't they have the same reaction? You think you're chosen? You, one of the smallest people on earth? You think you're chosen? I have the name of a fine therapist I think you need to see. Wouldn't that be the most logical reaction? Not, I hate you for believing it? So why are we hated for that doctrine? Because they believe it. That's why. There is no other possible explanation. They know there is something unique to the Jewish experience. They do. God, you know, it's very interesting because I've been lecturing so long, since my early 20s, and I've seen a very interesting pattern. When I would talk about Jewish chosenness prior to 9/11, 9/11 had a very big effect on a lot of Jews and a lot of non-Jews as well. But when I would say it at churches, I go, amen, hallelujah, praise the Lord, when I speak about the Jews as chosen. When I speak about the Jews as chosen in most Jewish places, they would think, did we invite a nut, a religious nut, to lecture us? Now, all of a sudden, it's actually more respectable in Jewish life to talk about this. I talk about this to Israelis, to secular Israelis. They don't have a really good answer because there isn't a really good answer. Syed Farouk was obsessed with Israel. Why? You take it for granted that it makes sense. Of course they are. The whole Iranian regime is obsessed with destroying Israel. Most of the people in the Iranian Republican Guard would willingly die if it meant that they could kill off the Jews of Israel. Why? Why did Hitler want to destroy the Jews? Jews believed completely erroneously that Hitler used the Jews as a scapegoat to get elected. Let me tell you, I do not know of a historian of that period, Jew or non-Jew, who believes that. The history is the opposite. Hitler played down his anti-Semitism in order to appeal to more German voters in the last voting of the Weimar Republic of 1933. He played it down. Hitler did not use Jew hatred to gain power. He gained power to implement Jew hatred. That's the case. Why? Jews don't ask why. We take it for granted that we will be hated. That famous statement in the Haggadah of Pesach. In every generation, somebody will arise to try to, and this is the key word, to annihilate us. When I was a kid, I give you my word, when I was a kid, I remember when we set it up at my parents' table, the Seder table, and I remember thinking, well, it may have been true in the past, but after the Holocaust, it's just over. Nobody's going to arise now to try to annihilate us. And now with pride, they scream death to Israel in Tehran, hundreds of thousands of people at a time, death to Israel. How do you, if you are not religiously inclined, how do you explain Jew hatred? And Israel hatred is Jew hatred, please. There are over 200 countries, and only one country on earth is targeted for annihilation. Only one. And by sheer coincidence, it's the only Jewish one. Do you think that's a coincidence? Seriously, do you think that? Hatred of Israel is, obsession with Israel is, as George Gilder, a non-Jew, has put it in a brilliant book, and in one of the videos we put out at Prager University, he has this brilliant concept, the Israel test. All he as a non-Jew needs to know is how you regard Israel, and he knows everything he needs to know about your value system. Which, by the way, brings me to a very, very delicate subject for Jews. Jews in America should be in a sort of cognitive dissonance, a painful cognitive dissonance, because the institution that Jews most have revered has turned out to produce the biggest enemies of the Jewish state. And the group that the Jews have most feared turn out to be our best friends. This could drive a Jew to drink. What do Jews revere the most? What institution? The university. And by the way, there's a simple proof that that Jews totally recognize. When I tell the following to non-Jewish audiences, there is total silence. They have no idea what I'm talking about. It's actually quite funny for me to do it. Here, people come over to me, or not every moment, but regularly. Strangers will come over to me. Oh, Dennis Prager, I love your show. I read your book, whatever it might be. It's a very sweet thing. I never resent it. I always get a kick. Sometimes it backfires. I will tell you a very funny story. At LAX, about 3 months ago, I was standing there waiting for my wife to pick me up. And a young Hispanic woman keeps staring at me, which I thought was great. But anyway, she keeps staring at me. And finally, she comes over and she says, "Are you?" And I go, "Yep." Because that's what I do. It's like sort of a joke before they say my name. I go, "Oh, wow." And she goes, "Phil Jackson?" It was a terrible moment, I mean, to be honest. Spending the next 10 minutes explaining I don't walk around telling people I'm Phil Jackson was very embarrassing. But anyway, people do 99% of the time. It's, "Are you Dennis Prager?" Fine, and then, so. How do I know if it's a Jew or a non-Jew that has come over to me? 90% of the time, there's no way to know. But here's the giveaway. If they tell me what college their kid goes to, it's a Jew. That's it, it's simple. In the history of the world, no non-Jew has ever told a stranger what college his kid goes to. And by the way, the proof is you're cracking up because you know how real it is. How are you? My daughter's at Dartmouth. That's how you are. That is your existential reality. That is the meaning you have in life. I have a non-Jewish friend who works for me. His son went to Harvard and then to Stanford Medical School. I actually overheard once. "So, how's your son?" "Great." "What's he doing?" "He's at college." "Where?" "Massachusetts." He almost needed to be waterboarded to say Harvard. The guy's a Gentile. He's thoroughly Gentile. He's no Jewish blood. So this is my introduction to tell you we revere something that has turned out to be a moral wasteland. The universities of our country. I say this with terrible sadness. I taught at the City University of New York. I love the world of the intellect. The American Anthropology Association just voted in a vote that was something like 25-1 ratio. It was hundreds, if not thousands, to like 25. It was a ridiculous vote. To boycott all Israeli universities, to have no connection with any professor or any work or any research done with Israel. In all the world, that's what the American Anthropological Association decides to boycott. They will do business with every disgusting regime in the world, but not Israel. BDS movement comes from universities. I just, a year ago exactly, debated at Oxford at the famous Oxford Forum. Do you know what the subject was? Some of you may have seen it. It's sort of gone viral, my debate there in Oxford. You know what the subject was? Who is the greater threat to peace in the Middle East, Hamas or Israel? Is that sick? I can only describe it as sick. Do you know? And I said that you can see it in the video. I actually said in the debate, I called Oxford twice to confirm this was the subject. I thought pro-Israeli elements at Oxford had kidnapped that evening and made the topic so absurd that it would be pro-Israel. And they reassured me, no, that's the topic. I said, we're going to debate whether Hamas or Israel is the greater threat to peace at Oxford University? Yes. And guess who we debated? There were two of us against two of them. You know who one of them was? A Jew, an Israeli, Professor Avi Shlein, and his partner, a PhD, Iranian-American woman, got a PhD from Berkeley, studying under him. And you know what she said? You can see the video. She said, Israel does to the Palestinians what the Nazis did to the Jews. Yep, did you know that? That they're being rounded up and sent to death camps? Did you know that? You didn't know that, did you? You know, I can only say, I remember when she said it and I thought, oh God, I only wish that the Nazis did to the Jews what the Jews do to the Palestinians. Oh God, we'd have 6 million Jews with us. And they won. 400 Oxford students, and the vote was about 250 to 150, that in fact Israel is the greater threat to peace in the Middle East. There are people who call my show, obviously it's a talk show, and I pride myself in the intelligence of my callers. Every so often I get a truly foolish comment from an intelligent brain, but a very stupid comment. And you know what I say? I say, excuse me, wait till they finish. May I ask, what graduate school did you go to? And they say, well, why do you think I went to graduate school? And I say, please, I'm not insulting you, I promise. You had to go to graduate school to say something that stupid. I brought 3 weeks ago, I was in Israel. I brought 450 listeners from all over the country to Israel. She's at the UN and at universities where she speaks in Europe. People would come over to her or ask during question periods, how could you represent Israel? You're not even allowed to vote. This is what university professors and delegates to the United Nations from countries around the world believe. That if you're an Arab Israeli, you don't have a vote. I was on Fox a number of years ago on that exact issue when a member of CARE, whom I debated on Fox News, said, oh, well, you know, it's an apartheid state, Arabs can't vote. And I said, he's lying. He's just lying to you because they lie for a living at CARE. And he is... Every Arab citizen of Israel has the exact same voting right as any other Jew in Israel. There is no difference. A citizen is a citizen. Of course, he said nothing because he knew he was lying, but he never expected that the other guests would know it. Because the apartheid lie, this is our day's blood libel. The apartheid libel is our generation's blood libel. You know the blood libel? The Jews would kill Christian children and use their blood to bake matzahs. Oh. This is the equivalent. Israel is the apartheid state. We have a video out there from a black African member of the South African Parliament. You should take a look. It's again at Prager University, 5 minutes. A black member of the South African Parliament who is disgusted with those who draw a parallel between Israel and South African apartheid. He said, I lived under apartheid. You cheapen my suffering when you say that. I was in Israel and I had to go to a hospital, and next to me on one side was a Palestinian and next to me was a Jew and I was a black, and we got the exact same service. You think that happened under apartheid? The laws, the lies that permeate our universities. I'm telling you, to send a child to a university today is to play Russian roulette with their values. Except 5 of the chambers are loaded, not 1. You know what I recommend, incidentally? So people say, well, what should my kid do? I'm not saying they shouldn't go to college. I, Dennis, am not saying that. I'm saying they shouldn't go straight out of high school when they know nothing about the world and then can be completely brainwashed, which is what happens. So you know what I have advocated? Jews have asked me for, this is 30 years, so what should I do? Send your kid to Israel. Let them learn about Israel so that then when they go to the university, they'll realize that what they say about Israel is a lie, and then they'll understand that what they say about America is also a lie. And then they'll have, you inoculate a child against the distorted view of the world that they will get at universities. And then 2 years ago it occurred to me, why am I only recommending this to Jews? So I now regularly recommend to non-Jews, who are, again, most of my readers and most of my listeners, send your kid to Israel between the senior year and the year that they begin college, for the exact same reasons. I have 2 suggestions. If you want the other, I'll tell you, and that is that they be a waiter or waitress. Any job that makes you smile when you don't want to is a character builder. It is an awesome thing to be a waiter. So what is the cognitive dissonance? The thing Jews revere turns out to produce the biggest anti-Israel hatred in the West. And the group that Jews least trust turns out to produce their best friends, Christians. Not mainstream, the conservative Christians, evangelical Protestants, conservative Catholics, Mormons, and it's quite something to behold. 400 people came. Now, you know how many people canceled? We went, the height of the stabbings in Israel is when we went to Israel. There were no more cancellations than when there isn't terror in Israel. They just went. I'll never forget. Yes, they do deserve a hand. That's right. My sister-in-law tells a great story, and with this I'll have to wrap up, but my sister-in-law tells a great story. Many years ago, during one of the intifadas, she and my brother flew. They live in New Jersey. They went from Newark to Tel Aviv. So on the way back from visiting Israel on the flight to Newark, my sister-in-law gets out of the lavatory, and a woman waiting says to her, "Oh, and what church are you affiliated with?" So my sister-in-law says, "Well, I'm Jewish and I'm affiliated with a synagogue." She said, "Really? Jews are visiting Israel too?" It's not funny. Jews cancel like that. It's something to think about. It's something to think about. It was a great trip. You were told to visit Israel. That's correct. Just visit Israel. Just show up. That's what you right now have to do more than anything else. And finally, somebody showed me an official statement that came out of the French, either the French government or French education system, saying the solidarity that the French felt because of what happened in Paris last month, and then it gave a list of all the countries that have been hit by Islamic terrorism. Is that a phone or a real cat? Or?
Sounds like a dog howling.
Okay. There was a listing in France of all of the countries that had been afflicted by terror, except Israel. It had Nigeria, it had Mali, it had Syria, it had Iraq, it had France, it had England, it had the United States, but not Israel. How ironic, isn't it? Goes back to my first point. When non-Jews don't understand those who hate Israel, the Jewish state, like those who hated the Jewish individual, they will pay the price. The world dismissed Islamic terrorists in Israel as Israel's problem, right? Then came 9/11, and then came all the other terror. And they realized, some realized, maybe we should have started confronting it when they started with the Jews. And guess who the biggest victims are now? Muslims. The people least likely to condemn Islamic terror are now the greatest victims of Islamic terror. Mm-hmm. Like the Germans lost so many more people than the English or the Americans. When you don't fight the evil that starts within your group will also be consumed. So to be a Jew is to be part of a difficult mission. But the moment the Jew really takes that seriously, there is more to being a Jew than just what appears. There is something transcendent. It gives you a tremendous capacity to keep fighting. It certainly has for me. Thanks for having me.
Wow.